So we just had the Kamen Rider Zets press conference and there is so much to talk about. We got the cast reveal, crew announcements, story details, and so much more. And this series without a doubt looks like it's going to be interesting. So without further ado, let's get into everything you need to know about Kamen Rider Zets. Starting off, we have our main character, Kamen Rider Zets. And I'm not gonna lie, the suit has grown on me a lot. One of my main complaints when we got the reveal was that he was a bit naked below. But from the trailer, we see that he gains armor when using the capsums. But with that said, let's talk about the man himself, Kamen Rider Zets, aka Baku Yorozu, played by Ryutaro Imai. Now right off the bat, this guy's name is a huge reference to the theme itself being dreams. Baku actually shares the name with a Japanese mythological creature who devours dreams and nightmares. So it's very fitting for a Kamen Rider who enters dreams to take on nightmares. While Yorozu translates to many things, likely meaning that he's a jack of all trades as a spy. Hell, he even has multiple disguises from the looks of it too. Either way, Baku seems to be a writer who has been doing this for a while. So it looks like we got a writer who really doesn't need the rope, similar to Double, Wizard, Build, and GIMMICks. And speaking of Double, it's actually Baku's actor's favorite show. But apparently he got the name Zets after getting involved with a nightmare one day. There he received the Zets driver from Code and given the code number 7, as in 007. Which yeah, Baku is a big fan of spies and the code name fits with the theme and the fact that he's the 7th REIWA writer. But he's only known as Zets in the dream world. So this makes me wonder if he'll be forced to keep his identity a secret similar to Drive, 01, and GAVV. But apparently this guy is the opposite of Lucky from Q Ranger, with him being the unluckiest man in the real world. While in the dream world, he is the complete opposite. Now this is funny to me because this guy just feels like Keiwa and Ace mushed together into the same person. In the real world, he's jobless, living with his sister, and unlucky, which is exactly what Keiwa was. While in the dream world, he's this badass, stoic, and almost cocky writer similar to Ace. And if the similarities weren't as similar, my man literally does the same HENSHIN pose as GEETS. Like, come on. But it really does seem like we're getting two main GEETS writers as one guy, which is going to be very interesting. Either way, Baku has lucid dreams, which if you don't know what that means, it basically means that he can control dreams and is highly aware of stuff that happens in them. So with this in mind, I wonder if this will be a separate power system for the series that ties into the main gimmick. Anyways, Baku has a bunch of forms which, after looking at them, are pretty sick. Starting off with his base form, Physicam Impact, there isn't a bunch to say about it. I mean, it's literally just an Ichigo clone. However, we gotta talk about them legs, cause holy crap, this guy has not skipped leg day. But like I said earlier, when using the transform capsum, he can gain access to armor on his legs and arms, which are much needed. Alongside that, he has a wing form, which I have to admit is a pretty cool suit. But given our track record with flight suits, I'm a bit worried about how it'll look. But up next, we have his Technolom form, I'm gonna guess that's how it sounds, which I assume is going to be a water-based form, which we haven't had a water-based form in a very long time. Alongside that, he has the machinery capsum, which gives him the signature grappling hook that spies use, while projection gives him a weird-looking cape. And from the trailer, it looks like one of these forms might be able to make mirrored images, though that might just be how it's filmed. Moving on to Esprim, this one seems to be a healing form, so maybe it has the ability to heal others. But when using the barrier capsum, Zets gets a big giant shield. And shockingly, it's not the Forze shield. But we can also see that the shield turns into an axe, which I feel will be interesting to see in combat. And lastly, we have the Paradigm capsum, which honestly is my favorite of the 4 forms. I honestly just think it's the purple suit. But this form can actually make Zed smaller and give him a scythe, which I don't think we've ever seen a writer actually use a scythe, correct me if I'm wrong. But alongside this, he has a gravity form, which I assume just allows him to control gravity. Also, this is another retool from Hike Sorozu and Venom Mariner from Gotchard. Now, I can't find a real connection to all of these forms besides maybe visionary ideas, as Physicam might relate to how physics theories change how we perceive our world. Same with technology and how our outlook can change on things as time goes on. Esprim comes from the French word for spirit, which is esprit, which can relate to how art and creative imagination might change our outlook on stuff. And lastly, Paradigm could represent a new model or framework that changes the way that society thinks of things. But if you have a better connection, let me know down in the comment section below. And while you're down there, go ahead and like and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on anything Toku related. Now, oddly enough, we didn't get a secondary writer announcement just yet, but from the leaks, our secondary seems to be Nox, played by Yuki Furukawa, which apparently he's going to be similar to Valverat, as in he's going to be a masked warrior at first, and then be a common writer later. But his writer name is going to be Common Writer YEZZ, which from the leaks, it looks like he's going to be a silver and orange writer and looks like this. He's literally just an orange and silver version of Zets. And if he is in fact the secondary lead, this guy's actor is kinda old for a secondary writer at 37 years old. Though apparently Nox's age is unknown, so for all we know, he could be over 2,000 years old. Anyways, Nox apparently lives within the dreams and cooperates with the nightmares, which means he has to have some notion to want to work with them. And if he lives in the dream world and his age is unknown, could time not move in the dream world? It would make sense given that they're being secretive about his age. But not much is known about his background or really anything, so really this is just a big giant mystery that we just have to unravel in the show. But moving on, we have our heroine, Nemu. And before any of you weirdos start getting weird, she is 16 years old. Chill the fuck out. Now, Nemu is a global celebrity that has captured the hearts of many, even Baku's. And due to this, when Baku enters dreams, he normally sees her there because they're dreaming of her in many different outfits. And with this in mind, I wonder if Zets will play into how people perceive you in a dream versus how you are in reality. Like if someone dreams of Nemu being a stuck-up celebrity, will Nemu not be willing to work with Baku in the dream? And given that she does her best to play the role in the dream and be close to the dream owner, that might actually be the case. But my first thought when I saw her was that she feels very similar to Neon and Misora. Neon was an online influencer while Misora was an internet idol. While here, Nemu is the queen of commercials. And I feel like this concept is interesting enough to lead to a lot of possibilities with her character. Now my question here is, could she actually end up being a common writer? I mean, the female common writer drought is real, and given the writer of the show, I feel like there's a high likelihood of her becoming one. But I feel to become a writer in this world, you have to have some sense of lucid dreams. And given the fact that she tries to play the role the best, she might have some sense of self-awareness. But up next, we have Tetsuya Fujimi, played by Kenta Mishima. Now, Tetsuya is the head of the Public Safety Paranormal Affairs Division. He's basically your old-fashioned detective with a strong sense of responsibility and passion. Think of characters like Kamen Rider Skull. He deals with cases that are unresolved and commonly known as black cases. Though he's apparently viewed very coldly by those around him, and they really don't know what he's doing. But alongside him, we have Nagamo Nasuka, played by Rika Anuki, who works in the same division as Tetsuya as a lieutenant. And apparently she passed the civil servant exam at a young age to become an elite officer at a young age. And she was assigned occult cases, which she considers unimportant. I bet her and Kajiki would get along real well. Now, strange enough, she reminds me a lot of Rinko Daimon from Kamen Rider Wizard. And with that in mind, I really don't want them to be similar. Rinko was a cool character in concept that in my opinion just fell flat and was underused. Her and Junpei were kinda just there for the most part, so hopefully that's not the case for Tetsuya and Natsuka. But apparently she knows about Zets and the dream world. And with that info alone, I really do believe that she will become a Kamen Rider at some point. And that's boosted even more because she is Kamen Rider Lopo and Kamen Rider Geats. And I just don't see why they wouldn't have a crossover between these characters, especially given who's writing the show. It would simply be some simple lore explanation, hell, it could even be in a whole dream or something like that. But moving on, we have Minami Yorozu, who is played by Miki Yagi. And she is Baku's younger sister and plays a similar role to Sara from Geats. She basically takes care of Baku and wakes him up in the morning. However, she believes that living a regular life is the source to her good health. And this already sounds like she will be a victim at some point, and maybe this will be around Christmas. And her job as a talent manager requires her to get up early in the morning. And given that she's a talent manager, I wonder if she is or will become Nemu's manager. Now apparently she knows nothing about Baku's role as Zets, which is much like how Keiwa kept the DGP away from Sara. But with this said, I wonder if she'll have a similar role to Sara, as in she'll become a writer as well. But given that she wants to live a regular life, I'm doubtful about it, but then again, Sara joined because she thought about Keiwa and was tricked by a funny frogman. So honestly, it could be a toss-up. But with this said, can we take a second to appreciate the male to female ratio in this cast? Like, this is a crazy sight to see, 3 out of the 6 main cast members being female. I don't think we've ever seen that before in Rider. and if one of them doesn't become a writer, I'm going to be somewhat upset. Now lastly, we have Zero, who is ZEZT'S bike and the commander of Code, which is a secret task force on Earth. It stands for Confidential Organized Defensive Establishment. Now Zero will act similar to Nick from Go Busters, as he has a robot form and a bike form. And he also has a tendency to speak in English and is voiced by Jay Cabrera. And not much is known about him except for that he's the commander and the bike. So he likely will have a minor role for the most part. And as for the driver, it's voiced by Koichi Yamadera, who is Spike from Cowboy Bebop and is kinda controversial. As for the monsters, I think they're cool, but I don't really see a theme they're going on with these like previous seasons. With previous seasons, we could just tell right off the bat what they're based off of. If I'm being completely honest, I think they're kind of basing it off of a person's fears or something like that. Now, as for the staff, we got a good team this year. First off, the writer for the show is Yuya Takahashi, best known for Geats, 01, and Xade. Which I know some people aren't happy about this, but for the first international broadcast, I think this is for the best. It's a safe option since 2 out of 3 of his shows are available outside of Japan. And like it or not, his shows are extremely popular. But place your bets on who is dying this Christmas. My bet is Minami or Tetsuya. But as a big fan of Geats and Xade, I am ecstatic and cannot wait to see the world that Yuya creates. Alongside him, we have the director, who is Kazuya Kamihoriuchi, who is the director of King Oger. Please forgive me if I mispronounced that name, I know I butchered it. But this is already a good sign given the success of that show. As for the action director, we have Jun Watanabe, who worked on Drive, Build, 01, and Revice, just to name a few. So the action direction is going to be good this season, just like GAVV, especially given how all 4 of these shows looked. Now as for the composers, we have Go Sakabe, who is behind Ghost, 01, and GAVV's soundtrack. And working alongside him, we have Hiroshi Takaki, who did the soundtrack for Alba Ranger, Shinkenger, and Lupat. So yeah, the music for this year is going to be fire. And from what we heard last night, it kinda sounds similar to the Spy Family soundtrack. But speaking of music, we have to talk about the opening Visions being done by Knocked Bane. And I gotta be honest, it's not a bad song, but nothing compared to what we recently got. But from what I heard of it, it has a lot of English lyrics, which is fitting since we're getting an international release. But speaking of international releases, we don't know where it's going to air as of this moment. I still fully believe that it will be on YouTube on the Toei Tokusatsu Worldwide channel, but they could put it on Amazon Prime. But if we get anything, I will let you guys know. But with that said, I am more than excited for Zets and cannot wait for its premiere on September 7th. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash the like button down below and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on any future videos. And with that, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. I'm FalPlays, and I'm out. Peace.